If only Marcus Ellington had listened to the boy sooner, the police would not have stormed the restaurant, the investors wouldn't have been arrested, and a billion-dollar conspiracy might have stayed hidden forever. But on that night, in the most expensive restaurant in the city, the only person who noticed something was wrong was the 17-year-old waiter carrying a tray of water glasses. A boy nobody respected. A boy nobody listened to. A boy they all thought was just the help. Daniel Mensah woke up every morning before the sun rose. Not because he liked mornings, but because life had forced him to grow up early. At 17 years old, Daniel had already learned a painful truth about the world. When you're poor, people don't see you. They look through you. Daniel lived with his mother in a small one-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city. The building was old. The paint on the walls peeled like dry skin. And the elevator had stopped working 3 years ago. But it was home. His mother, Amma, worked as a school cleaner most of her life. She was the strongest woman Daniel knew. She never complained. Even when life was unfair. Even when money was tight. But 6 months earlier everything changed. Amma had collapsed at work. At first doctors thought it was exhaustion. Then the test came back. Cancer. The word hit Daniel like a hammer. The treatment was possible. But the cost was terrifying. Thousands of dollars they didn't have. So Daniel did the only thing he could. He found a job. The Aurora Grand was not a normal restaurant. It was the kind of place where rich people came to prove they were richer than everyone else. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Soft piano music floated through the air. The view from the windows stretched across the entire city skyline. Even the napkins looked expensive. But Daniel never stopped to admire any of it. He worked, clearing tables, carrying trays, polishing glasses, refilling water. Some nights customers treated him kindly. Other nights they treated him like he didn't exist. But Daniel never complained. Every hour he worked meant another chance to help his mother. And that was enough. The night began like any other. Busy, loud, full of expensive perfume and quiet conversations. Daniel moved quickly between tables, balancing trays with practiced ease. But around 8:15 p.m. something unusual happened. 3 black SUVs pulled up outside the restaurant. Valet staff immediately straightened. Managers rushed toward the entrance. Even the head chef came out of the kitchen. Daniel noticed the tension immediately. Something important was happening. Then the doors opened, and a tall man stepped inside. Marcus Ellington. Even Daniel recognized the name. The billionaire founder of Ellington Technologies. One of the most powerful businessmen in the country. The kind of man whose decisions could change entire industries overnight. But Marcus didn't arrive alone. 5 other men walked in with him. Executives, investors, lawyers, powerful people. The manager quickly gathered the staff. Listen carefully, he whispered. That group has reserved the entire private dining floor upstairs. No mistakes tonight. Then he looked directly at Daniel. You'll help serve them. Daniel blinked in surprise. He was usually assigned to smaller tables. But one of the senior waiters had called in sick. So Daniel grabbed a tray and nodded. Yes, sir. He had no idea that this decision would change his life forever. The private dining room upstairs was beautiful. Dim lighting. Long polished table. Floor-to-ceiling windows showing the glowing city below. Marcus Ellington sat at the head of the table. The other men took their seats around him. Daniel began serving water. Everything seemed normal. But something about the room made Daniel uneasy. He couldn't explain it. But the atmosphere felt tense. Too tense for a simple dinner meeting. Then Daniel noticed something else. 2 waiters he had never seen before. That wasn't normal. The Aurora Grand had a small staff. Everyone usually knew everyone. But these 2 men moved differently. Quiet. Watching the room. Avoiding eye contact. Daniel felt a strange knot forming in his stomach. Still he continued working. Serving drinks. Clearing plates. Listening quietly. Because waiters hear everything. Even when nobody notices them. As Daniel poured wine, he overheard fragments of conversation. Tomorrow morning the market opens. Ellington stock will crash instantly. We buy before the recovery. Daniel frowned slightly. That didn't sound like normal business talk. Marcus Ellington raised his glass. To the future. The men clinked glasses. But one man didn't drink. Instead he glanced toward the kitchen door. Then nodded slightly. One of the unfamiliar waiters nodded back. Daniel felt his heartbeat quicken. Something was definitely wrong. 10 minutes later Daniel returned with the main course. As he approached the table, he saw something that made his blood run cold. One of the unfamiliar waiters stood behind Marcus Ellington. The man held a tiny dropper bottle, and slowly, carefully, he squeezed a few clear drops into Marcus's wine. Then he slipped the bottle into his pocket. No one at the table noticed, except Daniel. Marcus lifted the glass toward his lips. Daniel froze. His mind raced. If he was wrong, he could lose his job. But if he stayed silent, someone might die. Marcus raised the glass higher. Daniel felt his chest tighten. And then, he stepped forward. Sir, wait. The entire room fell silent. Marcus Ellington looked up. Yes. Daniel's hands trembled slightly. I think something might be wrong with your drink. One of the investors laughed. What? The unfamiliar waiter spoke quickly. That's ridiculous. The manager rushed forward. Daniel, apologize immediately. But Marcus Ellington raised his hand. Let him speak. Daniel swallowed. I saw someone put something into your glass. The accused waiter scoffed. This kid is lying. The room erupted in murmurs. Marcus stared at Daniel. The boy looked terrified, but he also looked honest. Marcus slowly placed the glass back on the table. Then he said something that changed everything. Bring the security footage. 20 minutes later the footage played on a screen. Everyone watched. And there it was. Clear. Undeniable. The waiter dropping liquid into Marcus Ellington's wine. The room exploded with shouting. Security rushed in. The man tried to run. But it was too late. Police were called. Within minutes the situation escalated. Because when authorities searched the man, they discovered something far worse than poison. Encrypted messages. Financial transfers. Instructions. And suddenly the dinner meeting became something much darker. A corporate assassination attempt. But the biggest shock hadn't even been discovered yet. Because as police examined the messages, one officer looked up and said something that made the entire room freeze. This isn't just one person. He held up the phone. There are at least 4 people involved. Marcus Ellington frowned. 4. The officer nodded slowly. Yes. Then he looked around the room. Which means one of the conspirators might still be here. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. Because at that moment, one of the executives quietly reached under the table. And Daniel was the only one who noticed. The police officer's voice still echoed in the room. There are at least 4 people involved. The words landed like a heavy stone in the middle of the table. Marcus Ellington slowly lifted his head. 5 executives sat with him. Men he had trusted. Men who had shaken his hand countless times. Men who had smiled while discussing a billion-dollar deal only minutes earlier. Now the entire room felt different. Cold. Suspicious. Dangerous. Daniel stood quietly near the wall, still holding the tray he had been carrying when everything started. His heart was still racing. The poison attempt had already shocked everyone. But something inside him said the danger wasn't over yet. Not even close. Police officers were busy examining the poison glass. Security guards stood at the doors. Managers whispered nervously to each other. Everyone's attention was focused on the arrested waiter. But Daniel's eyes drifted across the room again, because something still felt wrong. And then he saw it. Gregory Hale. The quiet executive sitting near the window. Earlier that night, Daniel had noticed Gregory give a subtle nod toward the kitchen door. The same moment the fake waiter had moved. At the time, Daniel hadn't understood it. But now he did. Gregory sat perfectly still. Too still. His hand rested under the table, slowly moving, carefully pressing something. Daniel narrowed his eyes. Then he noticed something small. A faint blinking light beneath the table. Daniel's chest tightened. Outside the restaurant, the street was busy. Police vehicles, ambulances, reporters starting to gather. And across the street, inside a parked black sedan, someone looked down at a phone. The message had just arrived. 3 words. Plan failed. Attack. The man in the car looked toward the restaurant windows. Then he slowly opened the glove compartment. Inside was a pistol. Back inside the dining room, Daniel suddenly felt uneasy. He didn't know why, but he walked closer to the window. Something about the street outside caught his attention. A car, parked too perfectly across the road. Engine running. Driver watching the building. Daniel's breath caught. He had seen that look before. Waiting. Calculating. Then the driver reached toward the passenger seat. Daniel's eyes widened. A weapon. Everything happened in seconds. Daniel's mind raced. If he was wrong again, he could cause panic for nothing. But if he stayed silent, someone could die. Marcus Ellington was standing near the window speaking with a police officer, perfectly visible from the street. Daniel's chest tightened. He didn't think. He acted. Sir. Marcus turned. Before anyone understood what was happening, Daniel lunged forward and shoved Marcus down. Crack. The sound of a gunshot shattered the restaurant. Glass exploded behind them. Screams filled the room. Police officers rushed to the windows. Across the street the black sedan sped away. Daniel lay on the floor, breathing heavily. Marcus Ellington stared at the shattered glass inches from where his head had been. The bullet hole was perfectly visible, right where Marcus had been standing. The entire room had gone silent. The police officer slowly helped Marcus stand. You okay, sir? Marcus nodded slowly. Then he looked down at Daniel. The boy was still catching his breath. You pushed me, Marcus said quietly. Daniel nodded. I saw the car. Marcus turned toward the broken window, the bullet hole, the shattered glass, the empty street where the car had been. And suddenly the truth hit him. If Daniel hadn't moved, that bullet would have hit him. Marcus looked back at the boy. You saved my life again. The room erupted into chaos again. Police rushed outside. Officers spoke into radios. More vehicles arrived. But inside the dining room, something even bigger was unfolding. Because the police officer reviewing the messages from the poisoned waiter's phone suddenly looked up. Sir, he said. Marcus turned. We found the payment trail. The officer held up the phone. And it leads directly to someone in this room. Everyone turned. The officer looked toward the table. Then pointed. Gregory Vale. Gregory's face drained of color. That's absurd, he stammered. But another officer stepped forward. We also tracked the warning message sent 5 minutes ago. The officer raised Gregory's phone. You told the shooter outside to finish the job. The room exploded with shouting. Police grabbed Gregory immediately. Marcus stared at him in disbelief. You? Marcus said quietly. Gregory laughed bitterly. You were going to sell the company, Marcus? Marcus frowned. And that would have ruined your secret investments, wouldn't it? Gregory said nothing. But his silence was enough. Marcus Ellington stood quietly outside the restaurant. Daniel sat on the steps nearby. Exhausted. Marcus walked over slowly. You saved my life tonight. Daniel shrugged nervously. I just noticed things. Marcus studied him. That's exactly why you saved me. Daniel looked confused. Marcus sat beside him. Do you know how much I spend on security every year? Daniel shook his head. Millions. He smiled slightly. And none of them noticed what you did. Daniel didn't know what to say. Marcus looked at him thoughtfully. You see things other people miss. Daniel rubbed his hands nervously. I just pay attention. What do you want to be in future? Doctor, Daniel replied. Marcus nodded. You would make a good doctor. He paused for a moment, then asked gently. How old are you? 17. And why are you working here? Daniel hesitated. Then he told him everything. About his mother, her illness, the medical bills, the long nights working after school. Marcus listened quietly. When Daniel finished, Marcus leaned back and looked up at the city lights. You know something interesting? He said. What? If someone with your instincts trained in investigation or security work. He paused. They could become extremely good at it. Daniel blinked. Security? Marcus chuckled softly. Don't worry. I'm not changing your future. He placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. You should still become the doctor you want to be. Daniel smiled slightly. That's my dream. Marcus nodded. And dreams matter. Then he added with a light tone. But if you ever decide to secret security instead, I'd hire you immediately. For the first time that night, Daniel laughed. A few days later, Daniel sat in a hospital waiting room. His mother lay inside a treatment room. Doctors were preparing for surgery. A surgery they had once said was impossible to afford. But Marcus Ellington had quietly taken care of everything. Every bill, every test, every treatment. Daniel still struggled to believe it. Marcus had visited the hospital personally. He spoke to the doctors. Then he spoke to Daniel privately. Your mother deserves the best care available. Daniel had tried to thank him. But Marcus simply said, You saved my life. That makes us family now. The surgery was successful. Amma recovered slowly but steadily. Marcus visited often. Not as a businessman, but as a friend. And over time something unexpected happened. Marcus began treating Daniel like the son he had never had. He helped Daniel enroll in the best school. He supported his dream of studying medicine. He encouraged him, guided him, protected him. And Daniel slowly began to see Marcus as something he had been missing his whole life. A father figure. Years passed. Daniel grew older, stronger, wiser. He kept his promise to his younger self. He studied medicine. He worked hard. But Marcus had been right about one thing. Daniel had a rare ability. He noticed details, patterns, behavior others overlooked. While studying medicine, Daniel also trained in investigative thinking and security analysis, just as Marcus had lightly suggested years earlier. Not because he had to, but because he enjoyed solving problems. Marcus often joked about it. "I told you," he would say proudly. "You were born to catch criminals." Daniel would laugh. "I'm still becoming a doctor." Marcus would smile. "And one day you might become the best security expert in the world too." The assassination attempt had changed both of their lives. Marcus became more careful, but also more grateful. Daniel's mother regained her health. Daniel gained opportunities he had never imagined. And Marcus gained something he never expected. A son. Not by blood, but by respect, by gratitude, by admiration. And every time Marcus told the story of that night, he always ended it the same way. "The people who tried to destroy me that night had money, power, and perfect plans." He would smile and look at Daniel. But the only thing they didn't plan for was the boy they thought was just the waiter. And that boy became family.